So I found that there actually is this huge body of research out there that shows that somewhere between 20 and 30%, there's a critical mass reached. It's sort of a feminine tipping point, and women really begin to change in an institution and change the way things work.
I mean, our issued uniform pants are nylon pants, but they're men's pants. Right. So if you're a woman and you go to get your uniform altered, I would take my uniform pants in to get them altered, and they'd have to so they'd give me like 38-inch waist pants, right? So they'd fit my hips. And so then they'd take my waist in on my pants so that it would fit my waist, but it's still, I have the big pants, and now I can fit my hips. But they would take the waist in so much that my back pockets would almost touch, right? Because they had to keep on, I'm not wearing those stupid things anymore. So now I wear the BDUs, which are not as dressy as the other pants, but they're the only things that actually fit a woman's figure, because they just have not made police uniforms yet for women. On the Washington Navy Yard shooting, the mass shooting a few years ago, I went to Major City Chiefs afterwards, and obviously in Major City Chiefs there's 2 women in the room, for all the Major City Chiefs in the United States, North America, Canada. And one of the male chiefs asked me, he says, well, I saw the press conference at the Navy Yard, and you had 17 different law enforcement agencies there, Park Police, Metropolitan Police, you had all these federal agencies there, the FBI, and at the press conference everything looked like there was no turf battles, there was no fighting over, did the FBI come in and try and take charge? Did you have problems? The FBI basically asking me, did I have to fight for my turf? Because there was multiple police agencies in this one incident that lasted, a couple of days. And I said, well, if you noticed at that press conference, there was, the 3 big law enforcement agency leaders. There was Kathy Lanier, the chief of the Metropolitan Police, Teresa Chambers, chief of the Park Police, and Valerie Parlave, the head of the Washington Field Office of the FBI. What does that tell you about why we didn't have any turf battles, right?
I mean, I find it's very frustrating for me that I can write an article about Iran policy, or I can write an article about women in national security, and everybody wants to talk about women in national security, and that gets way more clicks than the actual policy issue does. When Anne Marie Slaughter's article came out trying to think about the question of having it all, there was a whole strand of response that said, well, for other fields, what you're saying is perfectly fair and valid, but this is national security, so you can't actually expect to be able to be a mom and be in national, other fields fine, but national security, what do you think anyway? And there was this really shocking to me, having spent 25 years in the field and trying to balance being a mom and being in the field, idea that somehow because of the field I had chosen, I had in advance signed away my choices around how to parent. And that was a surprise to me.
I never had a desire to be the chief. I moved up to the ranks because I was a single mom and I needed the money. Each rank you moved up, you made more money. It just made sense to me that I was going to take those tests and move up to the ranks so I could put my son through college. But I had fantastic mentors, all of which were men, who pushed me to go back to school, to get degrees, to take those promotional tests and make sure that I was prepared to move up. Chief Ramsey, the former chief, who pushed me into being the first woman to run SOD. The first time he says, how about you go run SOD? I was like, yeah, not really. And he's like, oh no, you're going to run SOD. You need that in your best decision somebody else ever made for me.
So you find things that from the outside look like just tremendous change that may not necessarily be felt, or at least not felt immediately. But then you also find things that look so minor that what effect could they possibly have on anyone, that in fact have these knock-on effects that can be quite profound. And so I think that the Saudi, the lingerie shop story was one that surprised me in the other direction. A lot of women, described to me how if you really, really knew the Quran, if you knew it better than anyone, than your husband or your father, then that gave you a certain status in the family. And that meant that you would, never be bullied in the name of Islam, as many of the women I interviewed felt women sometimes were. And this theme actually has come up in basically every country I've worked in. And I was in Saudi Arabia in November working on a piece for The New Yorker about Saudi women studying law for the first time. And this was something that, just a great theme, like that it came up in every conversation, that it was important for women to really know what rights they had within Islam and what they didn't, and to really defend those rights very precisely, and defend them, because they felt that the Saudi women that I interviewed in November felt, just as the Syrian women, I first met in 2005, 2006, felt that there was a lot that was done in the name of Islam that they could counter through education.